Hello everybody, how are we all doing? Can you all see me? Can you all hear me? Are you all well? I see somebody's in here from Sweden. How's it going, Sweden? Are you well? Is it cold there? Is everything okay? Sitting there in the pitch dark, I'm sure. Just waiting for a bit of light to come through. Brilliant. Happy days. You're so welcome. It's all good. It's January. Is everyone okay? Ibukum, I've been waiting to learn more from you on broadcast. Broadcast, well, you're more than welcome, man. It's the place to learn. It's the way to do it. These toys that we're showing you, there's loads of broadcast stuff you can be doing with it. I mean, it's not just content creation and podcasting, as they call the WaveLab Cast. You can do so much more with it. There's tools in there just to help you get over the hump of freaking out with the knobs. Oh my gosh, what does this do? What does that do? You know, there's loads in there that can help you, you know. We'll walk you through nice and easy. I see and hear all right. Rain today. Sir N68. I'm sorry, sorry to hear about the old rain. You mean podcast? Is that what it means? Welcome. Listen, it's great to see us here. I'm so delighted. It's January and, you know, the whole thing is going good. I hope everything's okay for you guys. I know things are a little busy at home for me. Nothing comes along. It's like the buses, you know. You don't see a bus for I don't know how long, and then suddenly 50 of them come along. So it's kind of building up to be busy, you know, starting on a movie next week. Going to be designing that. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. I know I've got a TV series coming up a couple of the weeks after that. And then I think I'm working on a movie after that as well. So busy. And all good, no stress, all happy. Everyone's well here, and things are all good here in Ireland anyway. I don't know how things are with you. How is Sweden? My goodness, Sweden. Oh, and Sir N68, where are you from, sir? Love to see us here. I hope you get a load from this. We're going to go through a couple of things. Bit of editing, bit of dialogue editing. Now, the dialogue editing thing is super important. One, for the presentation of your podcast, okay? Because it's the difference between you lashing out a podcast, okay, and you producing your podcast with joy and love, and you're sharing the love with all the people out there, right? You have the subject matter that you've settled on. You're happy to do that. You also I'm sure have planned all your content, your interviews, your this, your that, your other. So we're going to talk about how when you've gotten your recordings into WaveLab Cast, how we end up chopping that up. And what I'm going to do is, I did a little interview with my son Manus, and it was literally just the two of us sitting there with a recorder. What do you think? Da, da, da. What do you think? Da, da, da. And what we'll do is we'll chop it up. Okay, and the reason I'm chopping it up is he's a very eloquent young man. You'll hear him in a second. He's a peach, an absolute peach. But what I'm thinking is, what I'll do is I'll go through the little bit of speech that he does, okay, and I'll show a couple of techniques to tighten things up, make it sound a little more coherent, easier on the ear, cut down on time. There's always that as well. You don't want to be your podcast that would be amazing 15 minutes being stretched out to 3.5 hours, because people are just going to go, what? Anyway, do you know what I mean? So we'll do that. But also I want to look at another couple of factors or another couple of features of WaveLab Cast. And that's what we're talking about in here, right? Have you guys, you're from Nigeria. Wow. What time is it there? Awesome. So exciting. People from all over the world. We're all in here as a big family. This is great. So we just come in here every, I don't know, third week in the month. And then we sit down, we go through a couple of techniques. We've done editing, we've done recording, we've done planning, we've done all sorts of stuff. And you can get the previous shows on the WaveLab channel on YouTube. Okay. So there is a lot of cross-pollination as regards techniques and stuff that we talk about in here. So a lot of the stuff that you'll be looking at tonight will be stuff you can use in broadcast. You can use it in, I don't know, music production. You can use it in content creation, believe it or not, and loads of different stuff. So we'll be looking at that. I want to look at another couple of features. But what is this WaveLab Cast you're referring to, Keith? Well, that wasn't really a good impression of, I kind of started off with Yoda and then it just went somewhere else. 8:04. 8:04, so it's only an hour. Well, that's all right, you know. Are things good in Nigeria? I hope they are. I hope everything's great for everyone out there. There is one thing that we never covered when we were looking at recording. Now, there was a really important thing that we did cover, and it's probably something you guys should look back at, and that's the situation that you're recording in. I don't mean you hanging out of the roof or stuff. I mean the room you're recording in. The optimal surroundings for you to get your best recordings. Because with all the tools that WaveLab Cast offers you for cleanup and, you know, there's nothing like getting it right, bang on first time. Okay? And then little tweaks in WaveLab Cast. All good. All good. But if you do an interview beside a motorway with big trucks lashing by and stuff, you're going to lose some of your dialogue. You know, you gotta think about it. You gotta plan for these kind of things, you know. So anyway, let me just show you what WaveLab Cast is. Did we have a look at this before? I'm sure we did. There it is on the website, okay? Steinberg.net/WaveLab/cast, right? And it's an iteration of the WaveLab family, okay? And you can see there that you get a trial version and you can buy WaveLab Cast as well. So there's a few ways to get it. You can buy it outright. Oh, look at that, 40%. Oh, that just popped up. Jackpot. Anyway, you can buy it outright, and it is cheap as chips. Or else, if you bought a recorder from manufacturers like Zoom, they give you a free version of this. Now, there's not a light version and a master, a full version. It's all the same iteration. So if you buy a Zoom recorder, you get it for free. There's Yamaha recorders as well, or equipment that you can get it for free with as well. And then if you have bought in the past some gear and you got, do you remember those cards you get? And you get WaveLab LE. You can get Cubase LE with certain products as well. Well, you can upgrade that version of whatever WaveLab you got with WaveLab Cast as well. So there's another way to get it. So it's great. It's great. Happy days. We're all happy about that. And we're loving this. What are the guys saying? I've been using WaveLab Cast for a while. It's lovely and I love it. Oh, brilliant. So you got your hands on it already, man. Oh, brilliant. So you're loving it, obviously. So super easy to use. There's loads of functionality in here that we're going to look through tonight, okay? One of the major things is a thing called the track inspector. I better shut up and start showing you these things, because if you can look over here, imagine you opened up WaveLab. If you're familiar with WaveLab, this is kind of the thing you'd be looking at generally, but now they have this tab here, which is called the track inspector. Now the track inspector is just the best in that, you know, I don't know if you have experience or much experience in audio production, or you could be a professional, you might not be a professional, but you're looking to get into it. Well, this WaveLab Cast is a super option for anyone starting out, and I'll tell you why. It takes care of most of the heavy work, okay? You imagine those desks, right, that you're looking at in TV shows or whatever, and they go to the studio and the singer is there, and the desk goes from there to a million miles that way with every manner of knob and button and slide and whatever you want on it. And you'd sit down, somebody says, right, start recording this, and you go, ah, freaking out, okay? There's an awful lot of buttons and knobs and sliders that WaveLab Cast take care of for you. And they've cut back on all the buttons, and they cut back on all the sliders and all the knobs and all the numbers and all the... It does so much for you. Okay, so let me just real quick go through the track inspector, and I want to show you what it does as well. Okay, whilst we're talking about recording techniques, editing, etc., 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 etc. And if you have any questions, just throw them into the chat there. Okay, it's not pinging me, but I will keep referencing it. Okay, so somebody got rain today. Love the rain. Do you know what I love? I love fishing in the rain. But that's when I use fish. I don't fish anymore. I got rid of all my fishing equipment, everything. Didn't even sell it. I just threw it in the dump so no fish would get hurt anymore. I just love fish. And I bought a hydrophone. So I actually record fish instead. I know. Bonkers. What are you going to do? Drop a tea. Nothing like it. Cilantro. Oh, there's a big health kick in our house. And I've been given rice milk for my tea instead of cow's milk. I don't think I'm going to survive January. Anyway, so let's look at this track inspector, because we'll only run out of time. Otherwise, we're lashing through so much stuff per show. It's great. Okay, so looking at the track inspector. So what does the track inspector do? Well, the track inspector does an awful lot of cleanup, and it really brings out the best in your recordings. It gets rid of dirt. It gets rid of things like sibilance. And if you don't understand what sibilance is, or understand the term, it's those S's and T's that really cut into the ear with a lot of recordings. I want to play some sibilant stuff just to get it into your ear so you'll hear it the next time you're listening to it, if you understand what I mean. Because you could be sitting down to your recordings, or you can be sitting down cutting your interviews, and unless you're aware of it, you won't be hearing it. So when you're listening for it, then you'll hear it. Okay, so sibilance is one of those things. You know, room reverb, air conditioning, fridges, things like that. If you train your ear to hear them from the get-go in your editing and stuff like that, that's where you learn your trade. That's where you learn, wow, I hear the fridge, I hear the sibilance, I can get rid of those, I can reduce those. And you just come up with such a better product at the end of the day, you know? And WaveLab Cast will sort an awful lot of that stuff out for you. Excuse me. So, hello from Sweden, sir. Sir N68 is from Sweden. I didn't even get that. I'm so sorry. I hope you're all well today, and I hope everything's okay for you in Sweden. So, track inspector. We have, if I look in here, okay, can you guys see that? You guys can see that. Okay, so I'm looking over here. Okay, so we have, first thing, de-hummer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, the track inspector is treating the track itself. So if we have our timeline here, there's my cleanup. I just labeled it that. I double click on that and I can label it whatever I want. Okay, so there's my cleanup track. Okay, because I want specific cleanup on that specific track. Now, if I had just my interview on this track, okay, sound effects, I have it there. I'm going to name that Manus, because that's the interview we did together. Okay, so there's Manus. This is the intro by the host, yours truly. So there's Keith. Okay, and I spell it with a K. After all these years, OMG. So there's Keith, there's Manus, and there's our music. But it's the cleanup track, and I just named it that. It can be any track I want. You can see here, we know that we're dealing with a mono track, okay, because we got one little circle there. Stereo music, stereo track, two little circles, okay. These are just little bits and bobs around WaveLab Cast that you may see in other DAWs, digital audio workstations. So, you know, WaveLab Cast is a wonderful launching pad for moving into the big boys, you know, I mean, as you get better and your productions get better and you feel more confident and you want to move into other areas, you know, imagine you start an Innuendo, which is stunning piece of kit, you know, WaveLab Pro. Now, you don't get an awful lot of the functions that you do in WaveLab Cast in those other ones, but maybe you're that advanced, you'll be able to move in no problem, okay? So, there's loads of there's things in here that are very akin to an awful lot of other DAWs, digital audio workstations around the world. But what you don't get in the other DAWs is this track inspector. So I'm going to select my cleanup track, okay? And as it happens, here's one we prepared earlier, and I just have to find my audio. Where is it at all? I don't know, where's it gone? I had it there earlier. It keeps just, you know, hiding on me, going, no-oh, no-oh. There's my reverb and there's my De-Esser. Ah, there's my DS. Okay, so if I go out here, I should have there. Okay, so first off, I want to talk to you about, I'm selecting the track and I'm going to my track inspector. Now you turn these on. Each of those has its own little row like this, okay? And can you see that? I haven't got my big ugly head in the way. The first of those is what they call de-hummer, okay? And your de-hummer is, let me see. So imagine you're working away in your recording. And imagine you have an electrical signal going into your, what do you call it? Recorder, okay? A power line, a power supply, etc., etc., etc. So what you did was you left an electrical cable across your mic leads, okay? And you got what they call hum. So it would be electrical hum. It's like brrr, and it's a constant hum at about 50 to 60 hertz, okay? So that in itself is a major no-no, in that you can have trouble with your recordings, because that's going to be going all the way through it, you know? Sorry guys, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Me track inspector's acting up. So if you're looking at what would you call it, a 50 hertz hum going all the way through your recording, it's constant. You know, if you look at you won't see it in a waveform, but if you look at a spectrogram, you can see the whole thing all the way through it. Now, spectrogram is just a way of looking at an audio file, just in a different format. And what happens is with it is it's just sitting there in your recording, and you want to try and get rid of it. So if you look at the de-hummer here, I'm just trying to call it up for you. I'm wondering, do I have the right session? And I'll be honest with you, because I was working on 2 sessions today. That's the WaveLab thing. That's great. Ah, there we go. Okay, so here we go. So the first one, let me just show you this, is over here. Now, I did a bit of work on these already, so I'm going to turn everything off, because you know what? I just want to show you a little build-up of how we can clean these things up. So it'll be all good. Let's look at each one. We have a de-hummer. So there's your 50 hertz and there's your 60 hertz. So if it's not one, it's the other. And it all depends also on where you are in the world, okay? You have a reduction. How much of that do you want to get rid of? Okay, so you'll see reduction repeated a couple of times in this. So it's the amount of the effect that you want to put onto your track. Okay, now I'll be honest with you, you got to be listening very carefully. You got to be careful of minding your recordings. And I'll show you some recordings, some dialogue. And if you put too much on, it starts squashing all your audio up, and there's artifacts come in. And that's the same with any audio cleanup software on the planet, right? You just got to be careful. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drop. Launch it. It's the same with any cleanup software. You got to be so careful with your lovely recordings. You spent an awful lot of time going out there, so don't whack loads of it on, okay? Just use your ears. These things on the side of your head are so important, okay? So the next thing down is a thing called De-Esser, and it's for Sibilance. Oh no, that's the Denoiser. Sorry, old man. Denoiser is Okay, you got like noise going on, fridges, you got aircon, you got the window open, there's traffic down the road and stuff like, and that's all going onto your microphone. And if you're not listening for it, or you're not aware of what you should be listening for when you go in to do the recording in the first place, man, you get home, even when you're listening to your recordings in that situation, that ambient noise is still there. So you kind of gotta get your head out of that space. And you know, as soon as you bring home your recordings and you plug in your SD card and you rip the files off and you go, oh wow, I didn't hear the aircon, or I didn't hear that the window was open and there was a load of traffic noise on there, or I didn't hear, I don't know, a fridge going in the background, you know. So these are all things you have to be super aware of when you're recording. Okay, I mean, it would be an absolute luxury if you found that. Imagine you're going to record a CEO of some company as part of your podcast, and you've only 10 minutes with them. If you possibly could go in and record the space, okay, and come out and listen to it, and just, it might be able to give you an awareness of what you're going into. That's the absolute luxury. Majority of the time, you have 10 minutes with the CEO, you rush in, you put on his microphones, or you set up the microphones and you go, oh, Mr. CEO, hello, hi, how are you? And, you know, that's it. That's your one shot. Now, if your granny sitting at home in the front room, there's things you can do. You can close the windows. You can make sure that the aircon is off. You can, I don't know, make sure there's no noise in the house. If the dog barks at the postman, put her out into the garden, you know, stuff you have to kind of plan for, you know. And until you start recording for yourself, you're not going to have the muscle memory to do that, okay? So yeah, you'll arrive home with a few recordings that have, all sorts of dirt on them, okay? And when you put it back into your WaveLab Cast, this Denoiser will help you with that big time, okay? It'll reduce the amount of noise on the recordings themselves, okay? So next one down, let me just turn that off and turn this one on. We're still selecting this track, okay? So this is where everything's going to be happening for us. The next is the De-Esser, okay? And as I said earlier, excuse me, I have a burp. As I said earlier, there's Sibilance, which is fairly onomatopoeic. Your sibilants are your S's and your T's. And people say different things and they're talking about sausages all the way through, you know, and it really cuts into the ear. So we want to reduce that, and the De-Esser does that. The De-Esser is king of that. It finds those specific frequencies and it reduces those. We'll have a play with that as well, okay? That's super important, okay? So the next section we have in our track inspector is this enhance, okay? So the enhance section is taking your voice or taking your recordings and just adding a little bit to it, okay? Making it a little more intelligible. Okay, because it's super important to carry your message. Yeah. So the first one we have there is the voice exciter. How exciting is that? So voice exciting, it adds loads of stuff and saturation and frequencies up in the higher end and stuff, and it makes some recordings, most recordings, some recordings, I don't know, depends on how you record them, but it can add an awful lot to your recordings, okay? And again, use your ears. Put on the amount you want to put on there. See, that's only a knob. I'm just dragging that up and down. You can't even see that. OMG. There we go. Did you see what the De-Esser is? There's the De-Esser, okay? I've moved down to the voice exciter. So I turned on the voice exciter, turned that off, and this is your amount. Again, it's just one knob, okay? The clarity, have a listen to how you're doing with how much of the clarity that you're putting on there, okay? Next down is a reverb, and that's a simple, super simple reverb that you can put onto any of your recordings. And it's not just an artistic thing, it's also imagine, okay, for example, and I'll play it for you now. Yeah, just for this example, okay? I'm going to play this real quick. Sorry, I'll just grab my cans. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. Have a listen to this.
Started to open up our eyes to this incredible journey that they're taking.
So you can hear there that the lady talking is talking in a very reverby room. It's like a glass room, or it's like a glass box that she's kind of in, you know. You can hear that there.
Being able to know where they're going, it's only through new technology that we've kind of started to open up our eyes to this.
Okay, so imagine then we went and we interviewed her somewhere else, and we got a wonderful recording of her in her front room, and it was lovely and clean. Now, I don't actually have that recording, but imagine we took this.
Such vile matter, so fairly bound. Oh, that deceit should dwell in such a gorgeous palace.
Okay, bit of Shakespeare for you, a bit of culture on this show. We always like a bit of culture. It's all good. Okay, so imagine that was her interview in the front room. That's a lovely, clean recording. I did that in a recording studio for a gig I was working on. Lovely bit of Shakespeare, clean recording. Then we could put a little bit of reverb onto the clean recorded bit, and we'd be able to use little bits of that interview in editing the reverby one, and it wouldn't sound out of place. So it's not just an artistic thing that you could put, you know, in your podcast. You're telling the story of these people walking through a giant concert hall, and there's loads of reverb on their voices as you create the soundtrack to your podcast. It's also a functional thing in that you can grab bits of voice in different places and you can edit them all together just to make the construct and make the coherence of your message better. So the reverb does different jobs for you, and it's super important to consider those as well, especially when you're editing. Now, you won't be doing it when you go in editing first off, but as you develop your skills, you know, it might be something you think of. Yeah. So the next thing down we have is our EQ. What's EQ? EQ is equalization. Equalization is enhancing certain frequencies and reducing other frequencies. So if you have a really bland recording or muted recording, you could bring up the higher frequencies to help it sound a little brighter, a little better, hopefully, you know. And EQ does that, but you don't have loads of knobs and loads of controls and stuff like that you would have on a professional EQ. It's literally just low, mid and high, and this low cut. Now, low cut literally just shelves everything below a certain frequency. So you have a frequency range, okay? And if I can show you here, it's on the spectroscope. Imagine this.
Ever book
See
containing
there, there's
such
not much
vile
bass
matter,
end
so
in that
fairly
one.
bound.
Let's go over here and see
Where
how
we're
much we have
going into,
there. Not much bass end in that one either. And do we have any bass end in this? Yeah, a bit more bass end there. See that? And you can see that in the spectrogram, because this is the bass frequencies. If I turn that on and just do that, see how much they're reduced? Okay, so the low cut reduces all those muddy, real bassy stuff that can muddy up a recording, and it just makes your voice recordings a little more coherent. It just brings out the intelligible frequency range a little better. Okay, so that's what a low cut is. Okay, and then just below that we've got the maximizer, which adds body to the whole, to your recording. Okay, so I don't know, just a thinner voice, you might just bring in a bit of maximization, if one could be so bold as to say, and it just brings in a bit more body and a bit more warmth into the whole thing. Yeah? Okay. So, if I recorded in a place that has huge ambience, maybe at a football stadium, I'm sorry, what do you mean? If you record in a place like that, do you want the reverb or you don't want the reverb? Because if you want the reverb, I'm sure you get loads of it in there. It was interesting, the use of reverb and how different people use it. I was just giving a lecture there a couple of weeks ago, and the students were talking about Star Wars, the original Star Wars. And they designed all their sound effects in the studio. But instead of putting reverb units on it in the mix, what they did was they brought a big speaker to different locations and they played their sound effects out of those machines, out of the big speaker, and recorded the big speaker and used the natural reverbs to place those sound effects in those scenes. Great, isn't it? You don't want reverb. Okay, so what you need to do is, in this place that has huge ambience, one, I would get as close a recording as possible. Okay, so I don't know how you're recording. Are you recording with lav mics? Or are you recording with a boom? But if you, with that sort of ambience, personally, I wouldn't record overhead because you're going to get a lot of reverb from there. So bring it as close as you can from underneath. You need to clean the ambience to be able to focus on the main voice, of course. And we can look at that and little ways of doing that. But the best way you can do that is try and get as clean a recording as possible. So if you have the luxury of being able to get the mic closer to whoever you're recording, imagine this is my mic, that's a windshield, there's my microphone. Okay, imagine this is my microphone. So I'm just going to get it as close as possible. And the reason I'm coming underneath is basically you get all the air from the nose coming down, so you're getting more presence in there. So now you find yourself that with a bit of EQ or a bit of shelving off the bottom end, you'll be able to reduce that an awful lot. But there's going to be a lot of presence there in the voice already. So you'll be in a really good position just to shelve off a little bit more from the bottom end, and that'll reduce the amount of reverb there. Now you could always try and find somebody or somewhere in that stadium that would be a less reverby. You know, instead of, imagine you're in a giant hall, okay? So instead of recording in the middle of the hall where all the frequencies are going to be lashing around and bouncing off walls and coming across on each other and all of that, like reverb is going to be, maybe you could do your interview in the corner where all the reverb will be reduced. Do you understand what I mean? So it's all about planning and how you can approach your recordings in the first place. Okay? And it's super important to do a bit of planning. If you can ever get into the location earlier, half an hour earlier, 15 minutes earlier before you kick off with your gig, and try and assess the situation. One, for, noise, ambient noise. Is it beside an airport and suddenly you start recording and suddenly planes start taking off 5 minutes into your interview? Or there's going to be, I don't know, a fire drill halfway through your thing. If you're there half an hour before and you ask the janitor or whoever's in charge of the building, is there anything I should know? Or, or somebody with local knowledge. Yeah, the planes start taking off at 2 o'clock. You better get your interview done. Okay, brilliant. So you're acquiring knowledge as well. Okay, so you really got to look at your situation before you hit record. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, brilliant. Let's see what the track inspector does, and then we'll lash into a little bit of editing. Okay, because I really need to get into the editing with you because you'll get so much from it. Because with the track inspector, I really wouldn't worry about it too much until I know that I have a good solid piece of dialogue to work to before I start adding stuff, taking away stuff. I need to know that my raw audio is right. It's like anything, as long as the main ingredients are the main ingredients and they're good and they're proper, you know you have a good recording, a good edit, and everything's solid, then you can put on the, as we say in Ireland, the gloss, okay? the enhancements. Okay, brilliant. So let me just play it. I don't have any de-hum, okay? So you'd know what a hum is, like over all your recordings. So you know what to do when you're trying to get rid of, to de-hum your recordings, okay? We don't necessarily need to know that. Denoiser, okay. This is interesting, right? This is brilliant. Now, I have a little recording from a TV show I worked on a couple of years ago. Brilliant TV show. But anyway, there you go. Let me have a listen to this. I'm turning everything off first.
Equalization for coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash and Gorda. Never thought to the moon tour.
Can you hear that? Now, that language is Irish, okay? Now, the only reason I took that was because I knew that recording was particularly bad. So it's nothing to do with the language, it's to do with what we're listening to. Again, we need to focus on what we're listening to, because it's so important to be aware of, windy day. Windy day, what do we need? Do we go out with a raw microphone? No, we don't. We need a windshield. Super important to be having this, in your bag wherever you're going. Don't leave home without it. You can't. As part of your recordings, it'll save you so much heartache and pain. Okay, brilliant. So I'm selecting my De-Esser track, which should be my cleanup track. It doesn't really matter. I just grab that and I can throw that up there. Doesn't matter where it is. Okay, so I'm selecting this and I go into my Denoiser. Okay, so I literally just click on it. There's my denoise. What do I have to do? I just put on an amount of denoising. So listen.
For coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash and Gorda.
Do you hear the difference there now? I'm just going to turn it off and turn it back on.
I thought to the moon tour. So Ach Beja like ma Willem Lesh and lad show like me by dog of coppers a gore and Gorda, so feck a much.
Can you hear the amount of reduction there? Absolutely fabulous. Now see this little button here? You guys can see that there? That's called a listen button. And that actually cuts out the recording sound and just plays you the reduced, the amount of reduction that it's putting on. So have a listen to this for a second. So I'm turning on my Denoiser. That's the amount of reduction I have on there, which is probably way too much, but anyway, this is just for an example. Have a listen.
Equalization for coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash and Gorda. Never thought to the moon tour. So
see, that's the amount it's cutting out. That's the amount of noise it's cutting out. Can you hear that okay?
Coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash and Gorda. Never thought to the moon tour. So
again, let me just play you this, and I'm going to put on loads and loads of cleanup, okay? Our denoise. Here we go.
Send for coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash and Gorda. Never thought to the moon tour. So
now that's a super extreme version, but you hear it's all squishy squashed down and you just and stuff, right? The denoiser does an amazing job, but you can't be putting too much on it or else you'll kill your recordings. It's like any other cleanup software on the planet. Bit by little bit. You have to do it that way, so you don't completely kill. You can hear it okay, great. So you completely don't kill your recordings. Okay. Let me just turn off the denoise for a second, have a listen to the same sample.
Equalization for coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash.
There's an awful lot of bass end there, so I'm going to go into the EQ and turn on the low cut. Have a listen to this.
Equalization for coppers, Ballyoclea, no? Shale and Archer Tain to con Vrulash and Gorda. Never thought to the moon tour.
Okay, so that's getting rid of an awful lot of the big rumbly bits, you know. And with the EQ, okay, let me just go here and go on here. EQ. Listen.
Coppers, body of play, you know. Shale and off the tain to
Here, loads more low end. And I'm pulling out the low end. Hear how thin that is?
Like me by dog of coppers a gore and gorda, so peckamage.
So that's just working the denoiser and the EQ with a bit of low cut and just roll off a bit of low end, okay? If it's too bright, just pull down a bit of the high. And when you get audio into your WaveLab Cast, play with all of these. I don't want to have to show you everything and take your hand. Unless you do it yourself, you won't learn it. And you need to be learning for yourself. You need to be getting your head in. And not only playing with the knobs, but listening. It's so important. It's like training your muscles. It's training your brain to hear the certain frequencies. What happens when I do this? What happens when I do that? So when you do bring in your interviews and there's a problem with them, you go, oh, I know exactly what I have to do where. Do you know? Super important. Okay, so listen to this recording now.
Ar thuúla tú sin faoi coppers body of play, you know. Shale off the tain to con bhú leis an gorda.
Oh, that's with the massive amount of reduction on there, but that's okay. Let's just pull that back so we don't have it. See what I mean? It squashes the hell out of it if you're not careful. Like anything, like any of these devices in the world.
Ar thuúla tú sin faoi coppers body of play, you know. Shale an off the tain to con bhú leis an gorda.
Okay, so that is so much cleaner just with two of those little units engaged. It is so much cleaner, and now we're starting to be able to use this audio. Personally, if that was the amount of wind noise on there whilst we were recording, I would have turned around to the director and say, listen, you know what? The noise on that wind is way too much. Okay? Can we, I don't know, shoot it from a different angle, but we all be behind a giant boulder or a building or something that would break that wind directly on the microphones? Because it all depends on your camera angles. That's fine, you know, you can shoot it that way and still get your landscape, but behind you is an actual building that's killing all that noise. Again, listening to the situation that you're in. Now, windshields and blimps, I have all sorts of, you know, those big things that cover microphones with all the fur over them. Blimps, yeah. So I've got a load of those. But, you know, in a hurricane, you're still going to get wind noise, you know, even no matter how much brilliant equipment you have. You know, so it's just listening to where you're recording and how you can address that. And again, working on the muscle memory. Okay, brilliant. So that's our denoise. How fabulous was that? Love, 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 love. So yeah, we talked about the reverb on this lady. So I'm turning all this off here.
Haven't been able to know where they're going. It's only through new technology that we've kind of started to open up our eyes to this.
Okay, so she's got a bit of reverb on her there. She's probably been recorded in a kitchen or somewhere like that, or somewhere close to, it really does sound like a kitchen, or somewhere with a lot of glass around. So have a listen to this. This is literally just a clean recording voice.
When thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend, in moral paradise of such
That's
sweet
the reverb.
flesh, was ever book containing such vile matter so fairly bound? Oh, that deceit should dwell in such a gorgeous palace.
So that's the reverb. Do you hear it going on there? So clean voice. So you're setting your recordings in your edit, or your story of the story of your podcast is your characters walk into a cave or a hall or something like that, and that's where you get you didn't even say that, did you? My head's not switched on. They walk into a hall or they walk into a cave. Now you can put on a bit of reverb. Now you're being creative with it, not just taking a bit of clean interview, which is a really, really cool technique, and putting a bit of reverb on there to match the reverb of the original interview, if you understand what I'm saying. So let me just show you while you're looking at that. There's the reverb, and I'm just going to hit play here.
What hadst thou to do in hell?
There's the
when
mix,
thou didst
0.
bower the spirit of a fiend.
That's how much is going on.
Moral paradise of such sweet flesh.
And that's the size of the room.
Was ever book containing such vile matter so fairly bound? Oh, that deceit should dwell in...
And you know what? With professional reverbs, there is so much, so many controls you can be dealing with and stuff. And you sit down as a non-professional and see a reverb unit coming up to you and you go, ah, freaking out. That's a lovely little reverb, and it's only 2 controls. So you're in control of those. You can be as creative as you want with them. And it's super simple. You don't need to know the intricacies of these things. So we looked at the EQ, maximizer. Let's just throw in a bit of maximizer just for giggles. I'm taking off that reverb and taking off the EQ.
When thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend, in moral paradise of such sweet flesh, was ever book containing such vile matter so fairly bound?
So you hear the amount of presence that it's putting on there. So that's the maximizer. This recording and this one I wanted to call up because of the de-essing. Okay, so we've looked at our de-noise, we've looked at our de-hummer, we've looked at... Oh, we haven't looked at the exciter. We'll look at the exciter in a second, okay? We've looked at our reverb and we've looked at our EQ. The de-esser we haven't listened to. Okay, so have a listen to this actress.
What hadst thou to do in hell, when thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend, in moral paradise of such sweet flesh?
Okay, so listen to the S's there.
In moral paradise of such sweet flesh.
Okay, so there's a lot of S's in there. Mr. Shakespeare really went on the S's in that specific line, okay? So let's look at our de-esser, okay? Now I have a massive amount of reduction on there, but watch this. This is the amount of reduction. You get to see how much it's putting on.
What hadst thou to do in hell?
See how much?
When thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend.
Okay, I'm going to go even more, right?
In moral paradise of such sweet flesh. Was ever book containing such vile matter so fairly bound? Oh, that deceit should dwell in...
So that's tons on there. I'm just going to reduce that slightly. But what I'm saying to you is it's sounding so much better. It's shaving off those big, harsh, sibilant S's. Okay? Now, again, we get a listen button. So have a listen to this. I'm just going to turn on the listen button. Do you hear the S's there? So that's, now we're monitoring how much of the S's we're taking off. Okay, so let's go again.
When thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend.
And I'm just going to play that again without.
When thou didst bower the spirit of a fiend.
Do you see what I mean? So we've just done a massive amount of cleanup on these 3 little bits of recording in absolutely no time. Thanks to the track inspector. Okay, so let's say I'm sitting down, I got all my interviews, I realize that there's, you know, a fridge going off in one of them, huge amount of reverb in another one. Maybe I could just match up a couple of interviews, a line from here, a line from there, cleaning up the noise, cleaning up the de-essing. There's so much you can do with just such simple tools. And again, you don't need all of these tools on every track. So imagine you had 3 recordings of 3 different people and they're all sibilant. So maybe you had a de-ess track for your workflow and just de-essing on that specific track. Like there. See the way got that there? So that's my de-ess track. So if I find something is crazy on there, I just put that on. Yeah? Okay. We spent an awful lot of time on that, I'm afraid, but let's keep going. That's your track inspector, okay? What I really wanted to do was go through a little bit of editing with you. And I think we'll continue with the editing as well. And there's other functions in here. Oh, wait till you see the ducking and other stuff. Brilliant, right? Love, love, love. What you should be doing is getting the trial version as soon as you can. If you get the trial version, you're getting your hands on it. I always say to students or anyone that I'm talking to, if you can get your hands on it, it's like a carpenter. A carpenter can read 1,000,001 books about working with wood. As soon as he takes a chisel in his hand and feels the weight of a hammer and starts banging into that wood, he's going to take lumps out of it, okay? Because the only thing he's done is read books or watch videos, okay? He's not considered the type of wood it is. He's not considered the hammer he's using, the chisel he's using. Is that chisel right for that wood? Is that chisel right for, I don't know, the job he's doing? So when you take that hammer with that specific weight, and you're I don't know if you use a hammer in your everyday, but imagine you're putting up a picture on the wall. You don't use a mallet to put in a little nail, okay? And if you did get a mallet, you'd understand, wow, that's really heavy, because your muscle memory will remember it. So what you need to do is get your hands on the tools beforehand and ensure that you have the right tool for the right job, okay? And how to use it properly. And you won't do that unless you actually have the tools in your hand. Unless you feel the weight of the hammer in your hand, how the chisel moves, how the chisel works. Working on specific wood, because that chisel doesn't work with that wood, it works with other wood, And the metaphor is, of course, these different tools do different jobs. And a mixture of these different tools can do different jobs on different audio and different problems. And it's just such I'm kind of blown away to see these tools, how effective they are, and that they're bundled in with this piece of software that's so accessible to everyone. I mean, the job these tools are doing is equivalent to some other clean-up stuff that you'd pay thousands and thousands and thousands for. Do you know? They're brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And it's so important that you get your message as clear as possible. I'm always on about the message. You want 50 million listeners to your podcast. But if it's too essy, cutting into your ears, or it's too noisy, and people are going, what did he say? What did he say? Or, I don't know, you just can't hear them, or the recordings are too thin without a little bit of EQ, or a little bit of maximizing, or voice exciting. You're in trouble. You won't get your 50 million listeners. These tools help you so much in cleaning up your audio. So when you've got your edit done and everything's sounding right, go in and do your cleanup. Okay, you're probably better editing. Do your cleanup first and then do your little enhancements after your edit, probably. But whatever works for you. I'd sit down. Personally, when I'm sitting down at a TV show, I kind of clean as I go, and then I have to mix the whole thing together. So do your little bit of cleanup. If it's too noisy here, too noisy there, too essy, too sibilant, do your little bit of cleanup, because it'll be easier on your ear also while you're cutting. Okay. There was one other thing that I really wanted to say to you about. I had a conversation with a pal of mine, Paul, during the week. And he's talking about his podcast. He produces his own podcast. And we're just having a chat about some of the stuff that he's been doing and how, you know, the simplest things can help getting a good recording, getting a good finished mix, getting a good, concise show together with a little bit of editing. And we're just having that chat. And he brought up a couple of points that I'd really love to share with you. Now, we're not going to have much time to do it tonight. But what I will, the number one thing I kind of brought away from it, and we can go through that conversation next week or next time we're here, because I really do need to get in and start editing with you. We'll bring in a bit of cleanup. We'll bring a bit of editing. I want to do that dialogue edit with you because that's super important. That'll carry through your whole existence as a creator, whether you're working in film or TV or music even. Okay, we'll do all of that sort of stuff. If you find yourselves, and it's probably more pertinent now over the past 2 years, one thing you can do super simply to You're Right Studios Academy, it is super. The one thing you can do is get your interviews via an online meeting program like Zoom, like, I don't know, Skype. Does anyone use Skype anymore? I don't know, Google Meet, any of these online meeting platforms. They're super handy for getting the interview. But I'll be honest with you, the sound quality is awful. And then you get those Wi-Fi breakups, and you get, and your man disappearing for 5 seconds or so. And it's just, when you kind of put out that audio into your podcast, it can be so, there's just noise. And so just a couple of pointers, right? And please remind me the next time to embellish on this conversation. If any of you guys are here next time, okay, we'll put up the link for the show in the next day or so for the next show. But please remind me to embellish on this further. I just kind of ran out of time with the track inspector going through that. First things first, see, can you get 5 minutes before the interview with the person? If they're working off a laptop, okay, just make sure that they're not sitting at their kitchen table. Can they go into their front room and close the curtains and cut down a bit on the reflection, okay? Because that's generating an awful lot of frequencies and noise in the kitchen that is just cutting when it comes onto Zoom. You're probably sitting in meetings for the past 2 years in work or whatever, and it's just awful to hear everyone talking with all that craziness going on around them. And what I would suggest you do is record your Zoom audio. But if there was any way possible, okay, get the person who's on the other end of the line to record themselves as well. And I would suggest, ask them to grab their phone, and as they're having their Skype meeting or whatever meeting it is, Zoom or whatever platform you're working to, call up your phone, call up your dictation on your phone or your voice recorder or whatever it's called on your specific device. Hit record. And as you're doing your interview, don't leave your phone up here if you're on visuals, okay? But just put it down there. Now I'm just holding it literally just here, okay? So there's my frame, imagine, okay? Get them to record that on their phone. And when you're finishing up with your interview, that was brilliant, man. Thanks a million for your interview. That was brilliant. I love it. You can hit stop on your phone now. And would you send me the file via email, via whatever platform delivery. And the quality of that will be so much better than getting the quality from Zoom or whatever into your WaveLab Cast. You won't get any Wi-Fi breakups on this recording, okay, because it's directly in the room, okay? So if you're only recording audio, get them to record it like a proper microphone. Put their phone up here, you know, get a good, decent recording of them, okay? And then they can send you that file. But you've also recorded what came from Skype. And what you recorded from Skype is now your guide track, if you want to call it that way. And that's what you can start recording as soon as this comes in, as soon as the good quality recording comes, better quality recording comes in without the internet dropouts. That's the one to work to, because you'll have a better recording. There won't be any dropouts on it. And if you do need to switch over to the other recording for whatever reason, you should have everything up and running on this. Super important. I can go through with you how to get the audio from Skype, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever platform you're working to, directly into your WaveLab Cast. So you're going to get a much better quality recording from your, let's just say Zoom, straight into your WaveLab Cast than getting a crazy little wire from whatever £2 shop or $1 shop or whatever the where you get these connectors, or in the local service station, and taking it out of your computer and back into the computer and recording it and trying to come up with stuff and leads, and you don't need any of that, okay? I'll show you the method of getting that in to your WaveLab Cast, if that is your only option. If the guy can't or girl can't record it there and then on their phone, your only option, because there's an awful lot of people that aren't techie at all, they can just about take a Zoom call, okay? And then there's other people that don't have even phones. So if your only option is to take the Zoom call, audio into your WaveLab Cast. And I'll show you how to do that the next time. And then we can work on that as well. Yeah. But if you can, just ask them. And if they are sitting in their kitchen, it sounds awful. Have a listen. And while you're at it, grab your phone, okay, during the week if you can, right? Just for a little bit of fun, okay? And what I'd love you to do is to go into your kitchen, take your voice recorder off your phone, hit record, and read a piece of a book, any book, whatever suits you. If you love Dracula, read a segment of Dracula. If you love War and Peace, if you love car repair manuals, whatever it works for you, all right? Take a little paragraph, go into the kitchen. La 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 la, okay? You fools, you're worse than senseless things. Many's the time and oft you climb battlements, ye to chimney tops. Bit of Shakespeare, bit of culture. We like that. And then go into the bathroom and read the exact same thing with the same delivery, if you possibly can. Don't shout your head off in the kitchen and then go up to the bathroom and go, okay? And then go into the bedroom and draw the curtains, or go into the hot press or your linen cupboard with loads of linen around you, and make those 4 recordings. And then as best you can, get a good set of headphones and listen to them. The reason I'm asking you to do that is because it's now training your ear to listen to the situation that you're in. Okay? So then you grab the dog and you're going for a walk around the block and take out the phone again and do the same little bit of recording on the side of the road, or by the sea, or in a crowd. same delivery, same passage. Now go into the office. And when you're in work during the week or whatever, and you're listening, sitting at your desk, imagine that's what you do. Record the same passage again in the office. And have a listen for windows open. The length of corridors that you recorded in. Is there loads of glass around you? Is there air conditioning going on? Now you're spending a little more time training your ear, focusing on your recording technique. You can always take your handheld recorder if you have one. By all means, oh yeah, it's better the quality the better. I just thought suggesting the phone would just be a little easier for you, you know, because you don't want to pull up a whole rig of microphones and recorders and leads and all that sort of stuff. It's just handy to have the phone, just to train your ears, okay? And then we can go through, if you've any questions about what you've recorded and where, we can go through that the next time, and how we can use these tools that we looked at tonight. How's best we can use those to enhance what you've just recorded. But just to put to mind the situation, how you recorded it. Try another thing as well, distances. Your microphone here or your phone here, and then out there. Same passage, same delivery. And just have a listen to those, okay? Because that'll be a super training for you to record your first interview with your first recorder or your first microphone going straight into WaveLab Cast. You know? Because maybe you only will have 10 minutes with the CEO of whatever company. Or you sit down with whoever. I don't know. Whoever's famous and they only have 1 minute to say hello. But you want to get it right. And by you training your ear and going around and doing the listening exercise in different situations, you'll be in such great shape to do that. Okay. I have to put on my glasses. I can't see that far, lads. Now, you look into this. Colin N. Well, you're very welcome, Colin N. And Studio Academy and Sir N68 and Ibukan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Ibukan. Yeah, really focusing on your recording techniques. If you guys can see the chat there, if you can go out and do that bit of recording, I don't know how accessible that stadium is to you, but if you can go out and do a bit of recording in different areas of the stadium, and then if it's only audio, why not go into a small room in the stadium? If it's visual, maybe you could do the recording in kind of a corner, do the interview, but have your camera angled so you're seeing the whole stadium. Now you're reducing the amount of reflection around you or that you're subject to on your microphone. Okay, so have a think about that, and have a try with that if you can. Guys, that was lovely. That was so nice to have you in here. And again, keep an eye out on the WaveLab channel, because I'll put the reminder up for the next show. And we'll do a bit of dialogue editing, which is super important. We'll do a bit of cleanup. So now we're getting into a workflow where we've done our recordings, we've looked at the situations. Go back and listen to the other shows, because there's loads and loads of learning in there as well. You'll be able to we embellished a bit more about where you're recording, how you're recording, and how to bring it into WaveLab Cast from an SD card. So we're just chipping away. We're going nicely, and next time we'll have a bit of a workflow. I want to definitely show you the ducking, which is kind of all about the mixing, but maybe we'll just tease you with it the next time. I definitely want to go through techniques of getting your audio from Zoom or whatever platform you're recording from into your WaveLab Cast for your show to be edited, and you can work away there. We'll definitely do that. That's super important. But if you can, get your hands on the trial, okay? Have a play with it. Don't forget the carpenter with the chisel and the hammer. You have to learn it, okay? And if you're starting to content create of any sort, now this is not just for podcasts. This WaveLab Cast can do all sorts of stuff. We haven't even addressed that you can work to picture with this. So you shoot your YouTube video and everything. You can do all your audio in here and keep it lovely and clean. And then garner an audience that'll stick with you because they're happy to listen to it as well as your visuals. So we've lots of work to do yet. But it's all fun and it's all good and we all love it, okay? Guys, thanks a million for joining us tonight. It was a real joy and it was a pleasure. And do me a favour. If you've any questions for me next time, just jot them down on a piece of paper. Bring them to the table. Remind me to do the connecting Zoom into WaveLab Cast thing with you. And yeah, we'll have a lovely time. Thanks for the lectures. Be expecting more trainings. You can expect as much as you want. We're going to go through the whole lot. We'll have a lovely workflow and you guys will hopefully be creating something beautiful sooner than you know. It'll be all good. It was such a joy, people. Listen, have a wonderful week and I'm looking forward to talking to you next time. Alrighty? Good night. Take it easy.